to discuss future scientific horizons.
That's the one.
That's the one.
That's the one.
Here to lead us in this panel, the one and only COO of the Tallman Group, that's Chief Organizational Officer.
Ooh.
Right, it's fancy. Fancy, I looked it up.
Dang, so prepared.
I didn't just want to call you the coup.
It's a coup.
He's cool, and he's the coup. Let's hear it for Justin Tombe.
Thank you, Ngaio. Appreciate that very much. How's everybody doing today? It's been a good day? Feeling well? All right, let's hear a little noise, ICBC. All right, thank you. I think this is going to be a great way to wrap up the day with a really interesting subject. I'm sure it's something that's prominent for many people here, thinking about where are the horizons of research, where are they taking us. The panel that we have here of subject matter experts have a lot of experience to share. There will be, of course, a bit of emphasis on the pharmaceutical industry, as that's the nature of the panel discussion here, but we will be venturing a little bit beyond just the narrow scope of the pharmaceutical industry. So briefly, we have, in order, Francesco Baffuno and Professor Christian Uritz, Athanasia Kanli, and Professor Božidar Radisic. And forgive me if I... Athanasia, yeah? Indeed. So we'd like to just give each of the panelists a brief moment to introduce yourselves, what your background is here, and then we'll start to dive into the subject. You want to start us off, Francesco?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Francesco here from Italy, but I work globally in North America and around Europe. And basically, we're doing a lot of research and in the pharmaceutical industry, and there's a lot of developments in the last years going on the medical side, but we focus basically more on the patient perspective. So we have a completely different model than the pharmaceutical standard one on the standardized product just for the market. And it's going to be great to talk about this with my colleagues here.
Christian?
Thank you very much. Welcome everyone in the evening here, in the afternoon last session. Christian Ulrich, I'm professor at Humboldt University here in Berlin, and I'm not working in the medical field. I'm working as a plant ecophysiologist in agriculture, horticulture, so my main focus is here on the production side. But we have established a lab. We are working since 6 years, in the beginning with CBD plants, now with the only university in Germany with a THC license for medical cannabis. On the production part mainly, including tissue culture lab, including the chemical analysis. But we are having partners established with the German Center for Medical Health, with a German Center for psychic health and so on. So we are offering lots of partnerships to the industry to work with the industry. And in the last years, we had 2 cannabis research classes. So cannabis entered already teaching at the university level, co-funded by the industry, thanks to Aurora and Demican, and so focusing really on this product, which we are rediscovering in horticulture. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. Athanasia?
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Athanasia. I'm originally from Greece, but I've been living in the north. Today is a lie. It's usually not as sunny. But apart from my personal suffering, I work for DSM Firmenich. It is a company with a history of 100 years, a leader in vitamins and pharmaceutical ingredients, and I'm responsible for our pharma cannabinoid sector. So through the high-quality pharmaceutical ingredients, innovation capabilities, and consistent supply chain that we can offer, we are hoping to be the partner for your pharmaceutical development, big or small, as many of our customers can attest.
Great. And Božo?
Hello, everybody. I'm Božidar Radisic, coming from Slovenia. I'm started on the other side as an activist 20 more years ago. But soon we realized that we can move the cannabis to the medical use just with education and with knowledge. So we organized a research institute in Slovenia, and we started to organize education for doctors and nurses, because if we want to bring the cannabis into practice, I think we need knowledgeable professionals. And if we start to teach them today, we will have first professionals like in 15 years from now.
Great. All right. So we are in this very interesting and unique time in the history of the world and here in Europe, in that we have been for the last 80 plus years in a period of prohibition on a plant with an incredible amount of potential to impact human health and a variety of other uses. Research has been constrained to very, very limited, narrow focuses, and in many ways has been underfunded and not carried out nearly as robustly as the plant deserves. And we're coming out of the backside of that now, emerging from what has been maybe a bit of folk medicine and cottage industry into an opportunity to sort of come back up and address this at the level of professional industry that it merits. And so what I'd like to do is ask my panelists what you feel is perhaps one of the most needed or prioritized areas of cannabis research that you feel should be emphasized moving forward. And we'll start with you, Francesco.
Well, I mean, in these last years, we saw a lot of research going on the two main compounds produced from the cannabis plant, like obviously CBD and THC. We saw a boom in the market as well on, products that were not properly medical, but used from people as well for medical purposes, But for the future instead, we have, the cannabis plant is unique in these aspects because it produces a lot of compounds. We've studied very, very few of them until now. There's going to be a lot of research done on minor cannabinoids for sure in the future, and that's going to be a lot of new cannabinoids that are going to be discovered, okay? On top, we need to address as well that the cannabis plant and the compounds, the secondary metabolites in general, we are talking about flavonoids, we're talking about terpenes, but these compounds are alive even when you cut the plant. So there's a fermentation process going on there after curing for months, okay? So actually the compound changes over time, okay? And is a base of, we can say, fermentation, for example, okay? So in a matter of terpenes, for example, there's terpenes that are unique to the cannabis plant, and that terpenes that are unique after the fermentation and exist only in the cannabis plant, for example. This is a topic super interesting, and we've been researching in Canada this for a little while, but for example, for the future, this is going to be super interesting venue. Unfortunately, we need, like I said earlier on, we have a different model. So we try to actually bring to the market right away our research, okay? With our partners, we try to monetize, okay, to bring the research further, because investments in research on these topics are really, not enough, okay, because funds, hedge funds, capital is looking for quick profit, and research for medical purposes is for the benefit of the society, of the well-being of the people. So it's a total different approach, a totally different philosophy than the capital, approach of the finance and on the business, let's say, So we're looking about healthcare and we're looking about business. We try to bring the things together. That's why our approach is trying to monetize, is trying to, self-sustain itself over time, to, expand the research in order to find new compounds, find new applications for patients and, for, like I said, the well-being of the society at the end of the day.
Great. Yeah, certainly business as usual isn't necessarily a model that we can adopt moving forward to realize all the potential. What about, Athanasia, you work directly inside the pharmaceutical industry, so you have more of an insider's view. When Francesco talks about the minor cannabinoids or these other elements that have potential medical application and value, what's the interest from within the pharmaceutical industry in researching and maybe developing products based on those other constituents and compounds that you're aware of?
Yeah, so I do have the joy and the pleasure to actually have these conversations with pharmaceutical companies day in, day out. And it is a very interesting shift in mindset that's happening right now. It used to be a question of big pharma, like, oh, this is cannabis, we're not sure. How do we know what is actually working and what is not? And this is changing. And what is very interesting to note, I'd say, in terms of what the research is focusing on, so minors and combinations, but when we think combinations is our API in combination with an existing medicine. So an existing approved treatment that could help amplify its impact, that could also help reduce side effects and so on. Secondly, the patient-centric formats. We should all be aware that with the knowledge and the technology that was available in the time, being able to dissolve CBD in oil was the best possible solution. That's no longer the case. We have solutions that are particularly applicable for patient convenience and patient compliance and reducing variability. And these could be solid formats like an orally dispersible tablet, like a chewable tablet, like topicals. And patients are asking for that, and we should be answering that. And we at DSM-Firmenich are actually developing some of these formulations, but we also see great applications from other parts of the world. And then a last area, so when I talk to pharma companies, what do they ask for? And I think that's what we all need to be aware of. There are two elements that will always come back: IP and pharma standards. So IP, I think, is a no-brainer. I've seen a lot of good work around patents across our industry, but pharma standards is something we need to double down on, because when you're starting a development of a new pharmaceutical product and short on cash, there's often a desire to limit costs, and that's understandable. But making discounts on the wrong things is going to make your product an unattractive investment down the line. And it's even more going to put patients at risk, which is not something that nobody wants. So starting right from the right ingredient, with the right standards, with the right certifications, all the way down to not just GMP. And I think we should be honest, there is a bit of a confusion on what GMP is. Being manufactured in a GMP facility is a prerequisite. It's not sufficient by itself. There is a set of quality standards and pharma prerequisites and purity data and stability data and how you design your clinical trial that you need to think in advance. Because what is the risk? That you find yourself at the end of the process of 3 years and you've made a discount that actually now means nobody wants to invest in your product. And who's losing? People who invested in you, your time, your money, the patient who's never going to get it. So I think we definitely need to have a wider understanding on how we approach this.
Indeed. And certainly companies that are looking to place their products in the traditional pharmaceutical model would be wise to know beforehand exactly what they're going to have to do in order to have a better chance of success. Božidar, you've worked with a number of different, you've worked from your medical clinic over the years, providing cannabis in different forms of delivery to patients, but outside of the pharmaceutical model. Do you believe that there's a place for research and development in the the other sort of medical applications that don't follow the strict sort of pharmaceutical model and standards? And what would that look like for you?
Yeah, I think that, as Athanasia said, there must come to change of the mindset of pharma industry, because cannabis works completely on different way than the certain remedies that are on the market now. Yes, we were following patients also, not just as a patient, but also we followed what they used, how they used, all the possible applications. So through the year we have a lot of, let's say, experience and knowledge. But I think that on the research that is providing by pharma industry now, the pharma is, I think, on the complete wrong way, because they want to, this is the pharma mindset, I think. They want to develop drug which will help for a certain condition. And I think we should adjust the dosage and everything to human endocannabinoid system so we can stimulate it on the best way. Not for the certain disease, but for the so-called personal medicine, personalized medicine. I think this is the future.
Yeah. Okay, very different approaches, but with similar kinds of goals in terms of outcomes.
Yeah, I will add as well that obviously the tailor-made, that's why it's very different than the pharmaceutical, like standardized product, okay? You cannot think about cannabis and application with cannabis plant itself and its extracts as any other pharmaceutical existing in the industry, okay? The thing is, if you take a cannabinoid, okay, then you synthesize it, so you make it proprietary technology, you patent it because it's no longer nature, and then you find something that is working on that molecule which is no longer nature, then you can have a standardized product, but it's not sure that will work on each and every one of us, okay? Instead, exactly the approach of somebody that it's been close to the patients can actually reveal how the pharmaceutical developments on the cannabis needs to be made, which is the tailor-made medicine. So we can give the pharmacists not a prepared drug, okay? Because this is why the regulation is like this at the end of the day, and I would like the regulation on the medical cannabis to stick like this and just move on the research side, because pharmacists are so important at this point, because, and obviously doctors, because we need to adjust the dosage as well to each and every one of us, the endocannabinoid system, as well the receptors, because each and every one of us has a different level of reaction to the cannabinoids, and as well the endocannabinoid similar that are produced by our own body, okay? Sure. So there's 3 levels where you need to look when you are prescribing, or when are you preparing a formulation for a patient in the cannabis, space. So it's not easy. That's why it's so difficult to educate physicians, okay? And obviously another thing is that the endocannabinoid system interacts with pretty much every disease that we can have, all right? So this means that cannabis mimic, we can actually interact with our endocannabinoid system with the compounds that are similar to cannabinoids, and as well terpenes, and as well flavonoids, and as well, protein and amino acids. So it's very, very tailor-made. A person likes strawberry, another lemon. You cannot, that's why for example, France is moving on the right way on the cannabis medicine because their flowers it's not possible to standardize a flower, okay? So they are allowing on the medical side just the oils, okay? Because it's easier to get as on the oils, because the flowers are so complicated, they just said, okay, let's get rid of this.
So let's stop there for just a moment, because that's an interesting place to maybe bring in Christian here into the conversation. There's a real emphasis, whether it's in the pharmaceutical model or whether it's in sort of the extant medical model, to having a standardized or consistent product, right? And yet the cannabis by its nature is it's a plant with a lot of plasticity, expressed very differently depending on the epigenetic conditions. So is there something from a cultivator's point of view that you think in terms of research could help create a more consistent, standardized product that would be of use in both the pharmaceutical and the more traditional medical model?
Well, Justin, I mean, this is what is demanded even by the regulatory framework we have. If we are going into the medical purpose, of course, we have to go into controlled conditions. More control we have, and more we are focusing on one genotype, more we can calculate and predict what the outcome will be. However, we are talking about a bioproduct, and the bioproduct is still so diverse. So tailor-made medicine is so much in the future when it comes to bioproducts, which where all of the components affect each other, as you pointed out. I mean, the entourage effect is something which we don't understand yet. We have just bits and pieces of our understanding here. Therefore, I think that from our grower's perspective, we are working on and we are getting much better understanding now on the plant. I mean, there's a lot of companies now who can produce cannabis, but they're all struggling, even within the production system on certain issues which will affect the secondary metabolite composition as well as the amount of secondary metabolites which are bioactive. So I see both ways in the future. I mean, the one is, of course, going stronger into the medical part, where we really try to understand in the beginning individual components, and then we start combining components, to understand what is the medical effect here. And we have seen this in other products which have not been so much stigmatized, but when I look into salicylates, it's the same effect here. Until we came up to a product like aspirin, but still there is a market in addition to the whole product. And this will be something which we will have also in the future here with cannabis.
Mm-hmm. Just a quick reaction to this, because what I really like about this panel, it kind of reflects the industry. We have completely different parts and completely different groups and people with different interests, which is great, because a polyphony of interest means a polyphony of research, new avenues. And I honestly do believe there is space for very different segments and very different products, so long as we are clear what is the need we are trying to meet here. What do I mean? I live in Amsterdam. There is a regulated recreational market, works fantastically well, right? There is space for that type of product in that type of market. Then we are seeing more and more of the cosmetics, food supplements. There is space for that market, for people who want to have a day-to-day functional benefit. There is space for the medical cannabis market as it is evolving. And then there is the pharmaceutical development, which is meant to be a product that has been tested and proven, and we know it works for the vast majority of patients with a specific disease and can be prescribed based on evidence, knowledge, and the confidence of the physician. And so where I am seeing that what my experience has been in this space is we're mixing things up. And that is not helping us, because it doesn't help us explain to the end consumer or the patient what kind of need we're meeting with our product. We can't be everything to everyone. And if we try to do that, in the end, we will end up with more confusion. And everything that comes from the cannabis plant is going to be bundled under I don't understand kind of area. And that's where I would like to caution us to be able to speak to what is the need we want to meet and what is the pathway we want to follow. So we chose the pharmaceutical pathway because we have a lot of experience in that, and we are convinced that once something is proven, proven, it can be reimbursed, it can actually be easy to access for a number of patients. That doesn't mean it is the only way, that it means that so long as we all understand, and probably what we should be investing in is a library of knowledge, a bit of a structured, organized way of understanding, documenting, and proving the benefit of different parts of the plant and different uses.
I love that term, a library of knowledge, and something that has been unfortunately a little bit impoverished over these decades of prohibition because we haven't been able to effectively address the research that needs to be done and create a language that contextualizes everything in sort of the path or lane, that segment that it would be appropriately placed in. So when we look at the landscape of cannabis research moving forward, I'm curious what you all see as obstacles that we'll need to overcome. I've heard people speak to the stigma of working with cannabis. We're speaking to not being able to differentiate the segments and the different approaches in the context of application. So I saw you nod your head first, Christian. I'll give you first shot at this. I think I'm going to get everybody here on the panel a shot of this. What are the obstacles that you feel like we need to overcome, and briefly, how might we do that?
Well, talking about obstacles, it's always the money first, but this is not what I want to mention here. No, for me, the stigma is really one of the biggest obstacles. I have lots of colleagues who are working with cannabis and research, and they do not publish papers, and they don't talk about it. Because still we are coming from a different generation, and it's still in the mind in the mindset of many people. When we opened a lab, a cannabis lab now at the university, but when my president comes, she doesn't want to get a picture because she's a politician, of course. She doesn't want to become involved in this too much. She's more curious. Oh, we are working now in cannabis at the university? That's kind of strange, We'll see what the politics in Germany bring. And I think this is something which we have to really overcome. That's one part. And the second one is, in the moment, research is very much within the companies. So research and development is within companies, and they all, have, of course, their own interest. They protect their research. They are not willing to share among, but what we need is not only a database of knowledge. We need also a solid ground for getting rid of all of those stigmatization. And I think this is something where the public needs to jump in open markets, and markets which are getting now, like in Germany, are more open, and start supporting, and this is the money part, supporting public research so that we have all kind of a minimal baseline. And then, the rest can be differentiated between companies.
Great. Athanasia, is there something that you'd like to add on, or we could go to Božidar?
No, I always have something to add.
I thought you might.
No, I think I already talked about the patient-centric formats. I think that's number one. Patient acceptance will increase the prescription, will increase the use, and will help reduce stigma, among other things. One more thing that from a formulation perspective is important to look at is the bioavailability challenge with many of these cannabinoids. We all know CBD, many other cannabinoids have very low bioavailability, very low absorption because of first pass metabolism and incomplete absorption in the gastric route. So what are we doing about that? How can we actually make sure that the patient takes enough of the medicine that is going to be good for them, but not more than what they need, and that it is effective? So here we at DSM-Firmenich have been working on that and are aiming to have, we're putting actually a clinical trial together this summer to test an improved bioavailability formulation. But we need more of that, everyone thinking together. I'm sure there are lots of technologies out there that have that aspiration eventually. And finally, something that's not an obstacle internally. So I think bioavailability is an internal obstacle, intrinsic to our work. One that I think is extrinsic is regulation, legislation being built without full understanding. So I think our duty and our opportunity is to help inform legislation based on the research that we do, right? Help the legislator who's never met a cannabinoid medicine before make informed decisions. And there's a really good example, there's many, but there's one that sticks to mind in me, it's from the Lambert Institute in Australia, where there was a very specific question from the regulator: do the workers in the mining and transportation industry in Australia, can they use medical cannabis and come to work the next day? So they did an observational study, and they proven there is no problem with memory, with driving, with anything they could measure. So actually the regulation came out and said, okay, that is not a problem. Medical cannabis can be used in this space. And I think we can do a lot more as well to help invest, but that shouldn't be only on us, right? It shouldn't be only on the industry. Public-private partnerships, shared costs, and a shared understanding of, if we are able to prove that this medicine works and actually helps relieve pain, which is a massive loss of quality of life, how can we get access to as many patients as possible?
Great, I really appreciate that. Božidar, would you like to speak about either the obstacles that you foresee to research, or perhaps the need to educate decision makers and stakeholders in the industry?
Yes, of course. Bad legislation is always a big obstacle for any research, and since very recent ago, everything about cannabis was illegal. You know, I think with the change of the legislation in Germany and other countries, this stigma will very quick disappear, and cannabis will come to the mainstream research because people demand it. You know, patients are very informed about cannabis, and now it's on the professionals' side to bring this to life as soon as possible.
Great. Francesca, do you think that there's a way that the regulators and the decision makers can be more informed and more responsive to a patient-centric approach, to something that considers, you know, really the efficacy in an area that's outside of their experience, outside of their wheelhouse, and how would you like to see us approach that as an industry?
Well, we saw the European Union last year make a huge step forward on cannabis research, because the European Union said, okay, let's invest in medical cannabis research. We're giving funds for the medical cannabis research. As well, I had the privilege to work back in 2020 with in an ISO project that was to create a standard for a recreational market in Europe, okay? So actually, I see that long story short, we developed the standard. There's an existing standard, few people knows this. There's an existing standard, ISO. So ISO stands for International Standard Organization. It's in Geneva. I mean, hopefully everybody knows about this, because it's every day in our lives constantly this kind of standards and regulations, okay? So we basically developed a standard for an European recreational market, how it needs to be the settings and developed, but still isn't approachable as to bring everybody together is not applicable, because simply everyone has a different approach in each and every country. But I see the legislators at this point moving forward toward cannabis, okay? We tried on the recreational, doesn't work. So they moved on the medical side, and it's working a lot, because anyways, we've seen a lot of projects going on, as well funded from public entities about cannabis research. So I'm very positive about this. Unfortunately, like I said, the institution is there, but the private sector not much, simply because of the financial issues, the return on investment so fast they want. They think like cannabis has cryptos, and so this sort of stigma on the financial industry. And on top, obviously, there's the problem of some patients that really needs cannabis. I met a lot worldwide. The patients that really need cannabis, but they are afraid of using it. They never used it because of the prohibition and everything, obviously, was not accessible. But now, they actually have a problem because cannot solve it because they're using palliative medicine, if they use cannabis, it will be much better for them because there's no or very little side effects compared to the traditional medicine. All right? So I believe that we can move forward fast. I believe that we can move forward fast if the finance sector is gonna invest in research in pharmaceutical, and we have the backup of the institution. So we can do a lot of great work over here in Europe, but as well, I saw companies in Canada getting millions for research, and it's exciting, you know. On the medical aspects, it's very, very exciting. So I hope that we can get to that point as well over here in Europe, cooperating with institutions like universities, private sector, companies. So this is going to be the future.
Great, appreciate that. Yeah, we can see here from the discussion today that it's a complex, sometimes convoluted landscape as we emerge out of the prohibition era, and the different interests that have influence on where cannabis research is being directed and to what end. So sometimes it feels like a lot to try and overcome, but at the same time, there's a lot to be excited about. I think we are finding now that there is going to be new models of public and private partnership that will come together to invest into research that's needed. And so in the spirit of kind of also looking at what's possible and what's it's what's exciting and what creates optimism in the space, I'd like to give each of you guys a chance to speak to just something in the world of cannabinoid or cannabis research that you're aware of now that's kind of a cutting edge and an exciting thing that really gets you fired up and that you'd like to share with our audience here. And we'll start with you down there, Božidar.
Yeah, cannabis is the most actually research plant on the planet with 150,000 studies about it, I think. But I think we need more, let's say, not that high science, but something that it would bring cannabis more towards doctors, you know. They need not high science, but they need the protocols, they need applications, methods, they need right dosages. And this is what is actually missing, because until we don't have this, the doctors, I don't know, this is my opinion from Slovenian aspect, it will not come to the general use among the in the medical system.
Got it. So education of healthcare professionals and in that sort of field there, development of that is a piece that you see in the support and extension of cannabis research that's exciting.
Yes, and I should also, I think that the cannabidiology should be part of the curriculum in the medical faculties and all other professional schools, because without educated professionals, it will never be a part of the mainstream medicine.
Got it. Thank you. What about you, Athanasia? What do you see out on the horizons of cannabis research that you find exciting or inspiring?
On the horizon. So immediately, I'm very, very excited about the premium formulated CBD powder we're bringing to the market, because we are talking enhanced bioavailability, solid formats, patient-centric formats, and increased API loading. We're talking enabling research on a different level. But okay, that is for now. On the longer time frame, I really am encouraged and hopeful to see that some countries are enabling regulation that is is helping the traditional way we've had to learn in this industry on how the plant works, from observational data, from real-world evidence, from case studies, which is not something that normally pharma would accept as part of a way in. This is becoming part of informing how we will do pharmaceutical development and how it will work. Practical example, what's happening in Brazil. You can bring a cannabinoid product to the market, you have to demonstrate quality and safety, and you have 5 years to do a clinical trial. What happens in those 5 years? The physicians learn which indication it works best, which patient population it works best. The legislator is learning which of these products are actually best to use and which ones are not performing to the promise. 5 years down the line, you have a well-designed clinical trial that can show benefit in the right patient population, and you have full market access. This is not something we've been used to in the pharmaceutical sector, and I think it is a wonderful step forward that some big countries and big markets are working on it.
Oh, that's exciting.
Still, the formulated CBD powder is more exciting.
So the change of the mindset.
Shameless plugs are welcomed. All right. Christian, what about you? Where do you see the horizons of cannabis research in the fields that you're involved in that are exciting and inspiring for you?
Well, there are two different approaches. The one is, and I've heard today in different panels that we are all going when it comes to medical cannabis under really controlled conditions. But I think we are going now under semi-controlled conditions, and we are having new technologies using lots of sensors to manipulate the plant during the production process, so that we really can forecast what the quality is, what the THC content is, and we are able to find the right algorithms during our production system. That we can create a plant, model a plant, which is then maybe the first step to a medicine, personalized medicine when it comes to a complete bioproduct. So I think this is really something which I'm looking forward, and we are learning a lot in the last years even. The second part is we are combining now systems. In horticulture, everything should be more sustainable. Because agriculture, horticulture is, of course, a lot of under pressure when it comes to climate change and all of this. And so sustainability plays a major role. And combined farming systems, so where we use not only produce a plant for one product, where we use the full plant, where we combine it to save energy and so on. This is something which is really inspiring. And we are running a project where we combine different production systems, and cannabis is only one part of it, where we work for the medical industry, but we fully use the plant for everything else, to feed, as a fiber, and so on. So lots of different products which are coming here, and I think this is really, really interesting to see what's going on. How many people are interested in cannabis?
That is a great reminder that there's oftentimes such a hyper-focus on, the particular cannabinoids or compounds as a result that you find in the inflorescence and the flowers, and so much of the rest of the impact of the plant and its life cycle and the other constituents in the plant are forgotten in these conversations. I'm reminded that in crop rotation with wheat and corn, hemp has shown 18% increase in yields in winter wheat, for example, just by being in rotation. So when you're talking about using the plant in multi-product systems, right, producing more than just the cannabis, simple things like crop rotation have been a part of the process that has been forgotten because we weren't allowed to plant cannabis for.
I was thinking even about completely different production systems, like combining it with aquaculture. We can use leftovers from the medical industry as a protein source for aquaculture, as a part of fish feed.
That's our
this is something completely different, which most people have not in mind. But if you start looking into nature, where the whole plant is used, and there's never, when you produce something, there's never waste. The term waste does not exist in nature. So everything which is a leftover, which is not used by one system, can be used by someone else. So, and we have lots of different production systems which we can combine. Thinking about insects, fantastic protein source for maybe the future protein for humans. So insect production is emerging field like cannabis, and the cannabis plant as a whole is fantastic.
Yeah.
That's it.
High protein. Yeah.
Okay.
Totally.
Francesca, the last one. All right, so we're about ready to wrap up. Francesco, this is your chance to speak to something that you see on the horizon that's inspiring.
Well,
Keep it.
I'll try to keep it. Long story short, so in the immediate future, there's a really interesting nanoformulation that is coming up, combined with other botanical compounds, so totally natural medicine for patients. There's a huge project to bring, compounds with fiber as well, because this is underrated. Over here, everybody speaks about the medical use, pharmaceutical use, but the hemp industry is very underrated, and this is really the cannabis industry. It should be really the cannabis industry. So if you guys don't want to invest because it's too risky, the pharmaceutical industry, then invest in hemp industry, guys. Textile, buildings, compounds. There's a group, my colleagues are working on carbon fiber made by hemp, so unbelievable stuff. And another project, the director is right up there, is bringing cannabis, hemp, and all the compounds, secondary metabolites to space, guys. So this is a really, really, really interesting stuff. And I'm looking forward. If any of you is interested in this kind of research, just reach out and we can cooperate for sure. Our philosophy is of cooperation and instead of competition. So we're trying to build a lot around us and with our partners. So partner up, let's do things. And the ICBC is a huge venue to meet. So thanks.
Thank you. We are out of time. I'm sorry we don't have time to get to questions, but I'm sure we can have many discussions in the foyer and whatnot. I'd like to thank our entire panel. This concludes today's panels at the International Cannabis Business Conference Series Berlin 2024. My name is Ngaio Bilam. I'm your host. We'd like to thank the Tolman Group. We will see you tonight at the party in the showroom. Starts at 9 o'clock. Wear your badge and, dress up a little if you can. All right. Ciao.
All right.